The war-torn skies of Selvar burned with streaks of plasma fire as Captain Elias Vance stepped into the grand but crumbling throne room. His boots echoed against the cracked marble floor. Around him, towering insectoid guards stood with their weapons at the ready, their large, multifaceted eyes watching his every move. Elias had seen a lot in his years as a Terran officer, but even he had never expected this, being summoned by the Queen of the Vralian Empire herself. Queen Eldjura sat weakly on her massive throne, her chitinous armor cracked, golden blood seeping from deep wounds. Despite her pain, she radiated authority. Elias had heard stories of the Vralian Queen, ruthless, cunning, undefeated. But now she looked desperate. "You are the human called Elias Vance," she rasped, her voice clicking in the strange, insectoid way of her kind. Elias nodded. "That's me. But I don't see why you need me. Your empire has millions of warriors." The Queen leaned forward, her violet compound eyes locking onto his. "Because they cannot be trusted, and because only a human can protect my daughter." Elias blinked. "What?" Before he could process her words, an explosion shook the palace. The guards reacted instantly, forming a defensive circle around the Queen. But it was too late. The enemy had arrived. The doors burst open, and through the smoke stepped Exaltor, the warlord who had seized control of the Empire's military. His exoskeleton gleamed under the flickering lights, and in his clawed hand he held a plasma blade dripping with fresh blood. His mandibles twitched in amusement as he stepped closer. "The great Queen Eldjura," Exaltor sneered, "weak, dying, and still clinging to false hope." Elias instinctively reached for his pulse pistol. The Queen, despite her failing strength, spoke with fire in her voice. "You are a traitor, Exaltor. You do not deserve the throne." Exaltor laughed. "The throne belongs to the strongest. And you are no longer strong." His eyes flickered toward Elias. "And you, a human. This is who you trust, Eldjura. How pathetic." Elias smirked, raising his pistol. "You talk too much." The next moment was chaos. The Queen's remaining guards charged at Salter's warriors, but they were outnumbered. Elias fired shot after shot, taking down enemy soldiers with deadly precision. Zalter roared in rage and swung his plasma blade at Elias, who barely dodged in time. "Take her," the Queen gasped, clutching her wounds. "Take my daughter and run." Elias turned to see a small, fragile-looking Vralian girl, Princess Zilvera, hiding behind the throne. Her glowing violet eyes were filled with fear. He hesitated for only a second. Then, with one last look at the dying Queen, he grabbed the princess and ran. Behind him, the Queen's final scream echoed through the throne room as the palace collapsed in fire and blood. "You said." The stolen dropship hurtled through the sky, its engines screaming as it dodged another round of plasma fire. The massive war cruiser ahead loomed like a beast waiting to swallow them whole. Its heavy cannons were already locking on. Elias clenched his jaw. "All right, kid. Time for lesson 3. Zilvera gripped the controls tightly. "What is it?" He smirked. "When outmatched, do something insane." Before she could ask what that meant, Elias grabbed the controls and sent the ship into a steep dive, straight toward the war cruiser. Zilvera's eyes widened. "That is crazy." "Exactly," Elias shouted as alarms blared around them. The enemy fighters chasing them hesitated, uncertain of the sudden move. The war cruiser, too, seemed caught off guard. It wasn't designed to fire at something so close. Elias grinned. "Let's see if they can hit a moving target." The ship spiraled downward, weaving between the towering turrets of the cruiser. Plasma bolts fired wildly, missing them by inches. The heat from the explosions made the air inside the cockpit shimmer. "We won't make it," Zilvera cried. Elias glanced at the ship's HUD, only seconds before impact. His heart pounded, but he stayed calm. "Hold on to something." Then, at the last moment, he yanked the controls back. The ship flipped, skimming just meters above the cruiser's surface. The sudden maneuver sent their pursuers crashing into the warship's defenses. Explosions erupted behind them as debris rained down. Zilvera gasped. It worked. Elias grinned. Told you. Now, let's get out of here. With the enemy in disarray, they shot past the war cruiser, breaking free of its attack range. The city's outskirts came into view, a chance at escape. But then the comms crackled to life. You fight well, human, a deep voice rumbled. Elias's stomach tightened. He knew that voice. Seltor. A new blip appeared on the radar, a massive black warship emerging from the clouds. It was his ship, and it was already charging its main cannon. Elias cursed. This guy really doesn't know when to quit. Zilvera looked at him, fear in her eyes. What do we do? Elias exhaled, his mind racing. The Valkyrie, his ship, was still at the spaceport. If they could reach it, they had a chance. He grinned, despite the odds. We finish what we started. Zalter's ship fired. Elias pushed the engines to their limit, heading straight for the battlefield's final showdown. The vast darkness of space was now filled with two mighty fleets, Zalter's warships on one side, Earth's powerful defense fleet on the other. Elias leaned back in his seat, grinning as he watched the massive human warships come online. Their weapons hummed, charged, and ready to fire. Zilvera stared at the screen, her mandibles slightly open in shock. So many ships. Elias smirked. Yeah, you didn't think Earth would be undefended, did you? The comms crackled. A deep, commanding human voice filled the cockpit. Unknown vessel, identify yourself. Elias quickly pressed the comms button. This is Captain Elias Vance of the Valkyrie. I've got a VIP on board and a serious problem on my tail. A brief silence, then the response. Elias Vance. The pirate. Elias rolled his eyes. Freelancer. And yeah, that's me. But trust me, you'll want to deal with Saltor before arguing about my job title. The response came immediately. Understood. Stand by. On the other side, Xalter's fleet remained still. The warlord himself finally spoke through the comms. So this is humanity's strength. Xalter's deep voice rumbled through the cockpit. Machines and numbers. Elias chuckled. That and a whole lot of stubbornness. Xalter sneered. You are insects compared to me. I will burn your world to ash. Elias sighed. You really don't know when to shut up, do you? The human fleet commander's voice returned. Captain Vance, is this enemy force hostile? Elias glanced at Zilvera, then at the dozens of heavily armed alien warships behind them. He grinned. Oh yeah, very hostile. A single word came through the comms. Fire. In an instant, Earth's warships unleashed hell. Massive railguns roared, sending projectiles ripping through space at near-light speeds. Torpedoes locked onto Xalter's ships, exploding in devastating fireballs. Laser batteries fired in controlled deadly bursts, slicing through enemy fighters. Xalter's fleet responded, returning fire, but they were outgunned. The sheer firepower of humanity's fleet overwhelmed them. One by one, their ships exploded. Inside the Valkyrie, Zilvera watched in shock. They are losing. Elias smirked. Damn right they are. Xalter's flagship was the last one standing, shields failing, flames erupting from its hull. The warlord's voice came through one last time. This is not over, human. Then, in a flash of blue energy, Xalter's ship jumped into hyperspace, fleeing. The battle was over. The comms crackled again. Valkyrie, you are clear to land. Welcome home, Captain Vance. Elias grinned. He turned to Zilvera. Looks like you've got a new home now. She hesitated, then smiled. A home, with humans. Elias chuckled. Yeah, you'll fit right in. As the Valkyrie descended toward Earth, one thing was clear. Humanity had answered Salter's challenge, and they had won. Elias pushed the stolen dropship's engines to their limit. The city's outskirts were in sight, but Salter's warship loomed behind them, its massive cannons charging. Zilvera's hands trembled over the controls. He's going to fire. Elias's grip tightened. Not if we make him miss. The warship's main cannon unleashed a blinding beam of energy. Elias yanked the controls hard, sending their ship into a violent roll. The blast barely missed, scorching the sky where they had been a second before. Zilvera gasped. That would have destroyed us. Yeah, well, let's not give him a second shot. Enemy fighters swarmed around them, their sleek black frames slicing through the air. Plasma fire streaked past the cockpit as they closed in. Elias clenched his jaw. Kid, remember lesson 4. Zilvera's mandibles twitched. I don't think you taught me that one yet. He smirked. It's called never fight fair. He flipped a switch, releasing the last of their countermeasures. Small drones shot out from the ship, emitting bursts of false signals. The enemy fighters hesitated, their targeting systems scrambled. That hesitation was all Elias needed. He spun the ship into a tight curve, flying low over the wreckage-strewn battlefield. The confused enemy pilots overshot their attack, and 2 of them collided midair in a fiery explosion. Zilvera's eyes widened. That worked. Elias grinned. Told you. But they weren't safe yet. Zalter's warship was still gaining on them, and the spaceport, where the Valkyrie waited, was still a few kilometers away. Then the comms crackled again. You are only delaying the inevitable, human. Zalter's deep, rumbling voice filled the cockpit. You cannot escape me. Elias rolled his eyes. This guy really loves hearing himself talk. Zilvera swallowed hard. He will not stop, will he? Elias shook his head. Not until one of us is dead. A new alarm blared. Another lock-on. Zalter's ship fired again. Elias saw the blast coming in the rear monitors. They had no time to dodge. Hang on, he shouted. At the last second, he nosedived toward the ground. The stolen dropship skimmed just meters above the battlefield, engines screaming in protest. The energy blast shot past them, straight into the pursuing fighters. 3 exploded instantly, caught in friendly fire. Elias whooped. Now that's karma. Zilvera stared at him. Are all humans this insane? He smirked. Just the fun ones. The spaceport came into view, a long stretch of metal platforms and towering hangars. And there, standing proud, was the Valkyrie. Elias exhaled. Almost home. But as they neared, a dark shape dropped from Salter's warship. A black, menacing figure landed on the spaceport platform, plasma blade igniting. Zalter himself had arrived. Elias's grin faded. Looks like we're not done yet. The Valkyrie shot through hyperspace, streaks of blue and white light rushing past the cockpit. Elias let out a slow breath, his hand still gripping the controls tightly. They had escaped for now. Zilvera sat beside him, her face tense. How long until we reach Earth? Elias checked the navigation screen. A few more hours. Should give us time to breathe. He glanced at her. You holding up okay? She hesitated before nodding. I do not know. I have never felt this way before. Everything I knew is gone. She looked down at her hands. I am supposed to be a princess, but I feel like nothing. Elias sighed. I get it. Losing everything. It messes with your head. He leaned back in his chair. But you're not nothing, kid. Your mother gave her life for you. That means you're important. Zilvera's mandibles twitched. Important to Salter. He will never stop hunting me. Elias smirked. Let him try. She tilted her head. You do not fear him. Oh, I fear him, Elias admitted. I just don't let it stop me. He gave her a sideways glance. That's another human thing, by the way. Zilvera gave a small smile. Humans are strange. Before Elias could respond, the ship's alarm blared. Warning! Enemy fleet detected exiting hyperspace. Elias cursed. He checked the radar. Xalter's entire fleet had appeared behind them. Zilvera's eyes widened. Impossible. How did they follow us? Elias's jaw clenched. They must have predicted our course. He slammed his fist on the console. Xaltor isn't just strong. He's smart. The comms crackled to life. Xalter's deep voice filled the cockpit. Did you really believe you could run forever, human? Elias exhaled sharply. Guy just loves hearing himself talk. Surrender now, and I may spare the girl. Zilvera tensed. He is lying. Elias smirked. Of course he is. Outside, the fleet opened fire. Hundreds of plasma blasts streaked toward them. Elias grabbed the controls. Hold on. He pulled the Valkyrie into a tight spin, dodging the first barrage. The ship shook violently as they barely avoided destruction. But the enemy was too many. There was nowhere to run. Zilvera turned to him, panic in her eyes. What do we do? Elias gritted his teeth. We improvise. His hands flew over the controls. He rerouted power to the shields, cut thruster output to minimal, and flipped a hidden switch beneath his seat. The Valkyrie suddenly stalled, drifting dead in space. Xalter's fleet stopped firing, confused. Zilvera gasped. What are you doing? Elias grinned. Bluffing. He pointed at the screen. They had drifted straight into Earth's defense perimeter. Hundreds of human warships loomed ahead, their weapons locking onto Xalter's fleet. Elias leaned back and smirked. Welcome to Earth, buddy. Elias ran through the burning corridors of the palace, his pulse pounding in his ears. Behind him, the sound of battle rage, blades clashing, plasma fire scorching stone, and the dying screams of the Queen's last guards. He tightened his grip on Princess Zilvera's small, trembling hand. Keep up, kid, he said, dodging a falling beam. We don't have time to stop. Zilvera's violet eyes were wide with fear, but she nodded, struggling to match his speed with her thin, insectoid legs. Smoke choked the air, and the palace trembled as explosions rocked its foundations. Xalter's forces were tearing the place apart. Elias turned a corner and skidded to a stop. A squad of enemy warriors blocked the passage, their weapons raised. The leader, a hulking brute with serrated armor, grinned as he aimed his plasma rifle. Nowhere to run, human. Elias sighed. You guys always say that. Before they could react, he fired first. His pulse pistol barked, dropping 2 warriors instantly. He ducked as a plasma shot whizzed past his head, then rolled forward, grabbing a fallen enemy's rifle. With a quick spin, he fired again, cutting down the rest. Zilvera gasped. You are fast. Elias reloaded. That's human survival instinct, kid. Let's go. They pushed forward, weaving through the crumbling palace. Elias knew they needed a ship. Fast. His own corvette was docked outside the city, but getting there wouldn't be easy. Suddenly, a massive explosion ripped through the hallway ahead. The blast threw Elias and Zilvera off their feet. He landed hard, pain shooting through his ribs. Groaning, he forced himself up and turned to check on the princess. She was pinned under debris, struggling to move. Elias rushed to her side, ignoring the pain in his body. He gripped the heavy metal beam trapping her leg and heaved with all his strength. His muscles burned, sweat dripped down his face, but he didn't stop. With one final push, the beam moved. Zilvera crawled free, her leg bruised but unbroken. You saved me, she whispered, looking up at him in shock. Elias offered his hand. Yeah, that's what we do. She hesitated, then took his hand. No more time to waste. The exit was close now. Elias led the way, blasting through more enemies until they finally reached the palace's outer courtyard. A sleek enemy dropship was parked nearby, unguarded. Looks like we just found our ride, Elias said. They sprinted toward it, But just as they reached the ramp, a deep voice echoed behind them. "Going somewhere, human." Elias turned. Zalter stood at the entrance, his plasma blade crackling with energy. Elias pushed Zilvera into the ship. "Strap in, kid. This might get rough." Then he turned back to face the warlord. "All right, big guy," Elias said, raising his pistol. "Let's dance." "You said." The stolen dropship skidded onto the landing platform, its engines hissing as they powered down. Elias barely had time to breathe before the ramp opened. He grabbed Zilvera's hand and pulled her out. Across the platform, the Valkyrie stood waiting, his trusted ship, their only way off this planet. But between them and freedom stood Zaltor. The warlord's massive form was silhouetted against the burning sky. His plasma blade hummed, casting an eerie blue glow over the platform. His red eyes locked onto Elias. "There is nowhere left to run, human." Zaltor growled, "Surrender the girl, and I will grant you a swift death." Elias sighed, rolling his shoulders. His body ached, bruised from the countless fights, but he wasn't about to quit now. "You really don't know humans, do you?" Elias said, stepping forward. "We don't do surrender." Zaltor snarled. Then he moved. He was fast, too fast for something his size. In the blink of an eye, he was upon Elias, plasma blades slashing downward. Elias barely dodged, rolling to the side as the blade carved through solid metal. He fired his pistol, but Zaltor deflected the shots effortlessly, the plasma blade humming as it swiped through the air. "You are nothing." Zaltor roared, striking again. Elias ducked, feeling the heat of the blade pass inches from his face. He gritted his teeth. He couldn't win in a straight fight. Zilvera watched in horror. "Captain Vance, get to the Valkyrie." Elias shouted, blocking a strike with his arm guard. Sparks flew as Zaltor's strength sent him skidding back. "But..." "Go." Zilvera hesitated, then turned and ran toward the ship. Zaltor saw this and snarled, "You cannot protect her forever." Elias spat blood. "I just need to protect her now." Zaltor lunged, but Elias was ready. At the last second, he threw a flash grenade at the warlord's feet. A blinding explosion of light filled the air. Zaltor roared in pain, clutching his eyes. Elias didn't wait. He sprinted toward the Valkyrie, leaping onto the loading ramp just as the engines roared to life. Inside, Zilvera was already at the controls, her hands shaking. "What now?" Elias slid into the co-pilot's seat, flipping switches. "Now, we fly." Outside, Zaltor recovered, his furious gaze locking onto them. With a deafening roar, he hurled his plasma blade straight at the cockpit. Elias yanked the controls. The blade missed by inches as the Valkyrie blasted into the sky. As they soared away, Zilvera let out a shaky breath. We made it." Elias exhaled, watching Zaltor grow smaller in the distance. "For now," he said. Then he smirked. "But something tells me this isn't over." The stolen dropship shot through Zelvar's dark skies, weaving between the burning wreckage of warships. Plasma fire lit up the horizon as Zaltor's forces swarmed the capital, taking full control of the Vralian Empire. Elias groaned, gripping his ribs. Every breath hurt, but he was alive. That was more than he could say for most of the Queen's forces. He glanced at Zilvera, who sat stiffly in the pilot's seat, her small hands trembling over the controls. "You did good, kid," Elias said, forcing a smirk. "Not bad for your first getaway." Zilvera didn't look at him. Her violet eyes stared blankly at the burning city below. "My mother is dead," she whispered. Elias sighed. He wasn't good at this kind of thing, comforting people, especially alien princesses. But he knew loss. "She died protecting you," he said. "Now we make sure her sacrifice wasn't for nothing." Zilvera slowly turned to him. "Where do we go?" Elias leaned back in his seat, rubbing his temple. They needed a plan. His ship, the Valkyrie, was docked at a spaceport on the outskirts of the city, but getting there wouldn't be easy. Zoltar's forces would be scanning for them. Then, as if the universe itself wanted to make things worse, the ship's warning system blared. Incoming hostiles. Elias cursed. A squadron of sleek, black warfighters was closing in fast. Zoltar wasn't wasting time. He wanted them dead. Strap in, kid. This is gonna get rough. Zilvera's hands tightened on the controls. I don't know how to fly in battle. Elias grinned. Then it's time for a crash course. The first enemy fighter opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked past them, shaking the ship. Elias grabbed the co-pilot's controls, yanking the stick hard. The ship spun, narrowly avoiding another blast. Lesson 1. Don't fly in a straight line unless you want to get shot, Elias said. Lesson 2. He pressed a button, releasing countermeasures just as another enemy locked on. The missile chasing them exploded midair. Always have a backup plan. Zilvera swallowed hard but nodded, following his lead. The ship ducked and weaved through the wreckage of old battles, using the debris for cover. But the enemy was persistent. One fighter broke off and came in low, targeting their engines. "Damn it," Elias muttered. He flipped a switch, activating the stolen ship's rear cannons. Time to see if this thing's got teeth. He fired. The rear cannons roared, and the pursuing fighter exploded in a ball of fire. "One down," Elias said. 2 to go. Zilvera's hands stopped shaking. She gritted her teeth and pushed the ship into a tight spin, dodging another barrage. Elias smirked. "Now you're getting it." But their victory was short-lived. Ahead, a massive war cruiser loomed, its weapons charging. Elias's smirk faded. "Yeah, we might be screwed." "You said." The Valkyrie shot through the planet's atmosphere, shaking as it broke free into the vastness of space. Elias let out a breath, his hand still gripping the controls tightly. He risked a glance at Zilvera. She sat in the co-pilot's seat, her face pale, her hands clenched into fists. "You okay, kid?" Elias asked. She swallowed hard, her violet eyes fixed on the shrinking planet below. I do not know. My mother is gone. My home is lost. Zoltar will never stop hunting me." She turned to him. "Where do we go now?" Elias leaned back in his seat, running a hand through his messy hair. That was the big question. Zoltar had the entire Vralian fleet under his control. No planet would offer them shelter, not if they feared his wrath. He sighed. "We need somewhere safe, somewhere Zoltar won't expect." Zilvera frowned. "Does such a place exist?" Elias grinned. "Yeah, Earth." Her eyes widened. "Your homeworld. It's out of the way, heavily defended, and filled with people just as stubborn as me." Elias said, "If anyone can keep you safe, it's humans." Zilvera hesitated, then nodded. "Then we go to Earth." But before Elias could set the course, the ship's warning system blared. "Proximity alert. Hostiles detected." Elias cursed. He checked the radar. A small fleet had just appeared out of hyperspace, sleek black warships with Zoltar's insignia glowing red. "Damn it," he muttered. "That was fast." Zilvera gripped the armrests. "He found us already." Elias clenched his jaw. He must have planted a tracker on the dropship. He punched the console angrily. Should have known. A transmission came through. The deep, menacing voice of Zoltar echoed through the cockpit. "Did you truly think you could escape me, human?" Elias rolled his eyes. "You really love talking, don't you?" Zoltar's tone remained cold. "Your ship is surrounded. Surrender now, and I will grant you a swift death." Zilvera turned to Elias, panic in her voice. "What do we do?" Elias exhaled, cracking his neck. "We do what humans do best." Zilvera blinked. "What is that?" Elias grinned, his hands flying over the controls. "We fight." Without another word, he slammed the Valkyrie into a hard roll, dodging the first wave of enemy fire. Plasma beams streaked past them, as he pushed the engines to full throttle. Zilvera gasped. "We cannot take on an entire fleet." "Good thing we're not gonna fight them all," Elias said, a wild grin on his face. "We just have to outrun them." He punched the hyperdrive controls. The ship shook violently as the Valkyrie jumped to light speed, leaving Xalter's fleet behind. But Elias knew the warlord wasn't giving up that easily. Earth was their last hope, and Xalter was coming for them. Elias tightened his grip on his pulse pistol, his body tense as he stared down Xalter. The warlord's mandibles twitched in amusement, his glowing red eyes locked onto Elias like a predator sizing up its prey. "You should have run when you had the chance, human," Xalter growled, stepping forward with slow, deliberate movements. The plasma blade in his claw crackled, illuminating his armored frame. "Now you die." Elias smirked. "You talk too much." Xalter lunged. Elias rolled to the side just as the plasma blade slashed down, melting the ground where he had stood. Without hesitation, he fired his pistol, but Xalter was fast, too fast. The warlord dodged, closing the distance in a blur. Elias barely had time to raise his arm before a powerful backhand sent him flying. He crashed against a metal crate, pain exploding in his ribs. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself up. Inside the stolen dropship, Zilvera watched in horror. "Captain Vance, stay in the ship, kid," Elias shouted, wiping blood from his mouth. Xalter laughed. "Your species is weak, human. You fight like prey." Elias chuckled, despite the pain. "Funny, you say that, but I'm still standing." Xalter snarled and charged again. This time, Elias was ready. He ducked under the warlord's swing, grabbing a fallen plasma rifle from the ground. As Xalter turned, Elias fired point-blank into his chest. The impact sent the warlord stumbling back, smoke rising from his armor. Elias didn't stop. He fired again. One shot, two, three, forcing Xalter to retreat. The warlord's amusement vanished, replaced by rage. "Enough." With a furious roar, Xalter slammed his fist into the ground. A shockwave rippled outward, knocking Elias off his feet. Before he could react, Xalter grabbed him by the throat and lifted him into the air. Elias struggled, his vision blurring as the warlord's grip tightened. "You fight well," Xalter admitted, "but you are still only human." Elias gasped for breath. His fingers fumbled at his belt, searching, then found what he needed, a flash grenade. With the last of his strength, he activated it and let it drop. The explosion of light and sound was blinding. Xalter roared, staggering back, his eyes overloaded. Elias collapsed to the ground, coughing as air rushed back into his lungs. He didn't waste a second. Rolling onto his knees, he grabbed his pistol and fired the last shot into Xalter's shoulder. The warlord howled in pain as Elias sprinted toward the dropship. "Punch it, kid," he yelled as he dove inside. Zilvera slammed the controls, and the ship's engines roared to life. The ramp closed just as Xalter lunged, his claws scraping against the hull. Elias collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, panting. Zilvera looked at him, her eyes wide. "You fought him, and survived." Elias smirked. "Yeah. And next time, I'm taking him down for good."